How are you responding to Trump's threats about 100% tariffs?
Well, the first thing is that Canada respects our engagements, our commitments. Il y a des engagements dans l'ACM. We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy. What we've done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. In many respects, we're going, to use the expression, back to the future with respect to EVs, with respect to agriculture, with respect to fish products and other food products, but with additional protections. So for example, back in 2023, we didn't have a cap on the number of EVs. We didn't have a requirement for a large proportion of those EVs to be affordable, highly affordable EVs for Canadians. So it's entirely consistent with CUSMA, with our obligations, which we very much respect.
A new fault line is opening in the global trade war, and Canada is suddenly caught in the crossfire. As U.S. President Donald Trump sharpens his tariff threats, China is pushing back, rejecting what it calls Washington's Cold War mentality. Beijing insists its growing partnership with Canada is not aimed at the United States or any other country. China's foreign ministry says cooperation, not confrontation, must define the future. Win-win, not zero-sum. Chinese officials say the new strategic engagement with Ottawa is focused on resolving bilateral trade issues and nothing more. Not directed against any third party, Beijing says, even as pressure from Washington intensifies.
It's been reported that the United States intends to impose a 100% tariff on Canadian imports if Canada proceeds with finalizing a new trade agreement with China. This statement comes after a similar warning was issued by President Trump just this past Saturday. Could you please provide the Foreign Ministry's official comment on this matter? Thank you.
China advocates that all countries should manage international relations with a win-win, not zero-sum philosophy and in a cooperative, not confrontational manner. China and Canada are forging a new type of strategic partnership and have established concrete arrangements to effectively address economic and trade issues between our two countries. This reflects the spirit of mutual respect, openness, inclusiveness, peaceful collaboration, and shared prosperity. It is not aimed at any third party and serves the common interests of both our peoples while also contributing to global peace, stability, development, and prosperity.
Because President Trump is issuing an unmistakable warning. A 100% tariff on Canadian goods if Canada moves closer to China. Trump claims Beijing is already taking over Canada's economy. But in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to cool the fire. Carney says Canada has no plans to pursue a free trade agreement with China. He insists recent talks with Beijing only rolled back limited tariffs in a handful of sectors, nothing more. And Carney points to Canada's commitments under USMCA, rules that prohibit free trade deals with non-market economies without prior notice.
Look, we're in a situation where, and Canadians know this, the world's rapidly changing. That's leaving a cloud of uncertainty and worry hanging over all of us, Canadian businesses, Canadian workers, Canadian families. Our government's focused on what we can control, and that starts with building a stronger, more resilient Canadian economy. So Canada is less reliant on a single trading partner, and we are more resilient to global shocks, what happens outside of our country. So we're starting to fundamentally transform our economy, building a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canada. It's already getting results. Dozens of new partnerships abroad, launching Build Canada homes, fast-tracking major nation-building projects. Our economy, Canada's economy, has created 190,000 jobs on net since August. In absolute terms, that's more than the United States over the same period. We have the right plan. The world is knocking at our door, and momentum is building. And last week's new strategic partnership with China will make available tens of thousands of affordable electric vehicles in Canada.
Since your speech in Davos, we've had Donald Trump threatened fresh tariffs on Canada if we cut a deal with China. He's rescinded your invitation to the Board of Peace. He started calling you governor, like he did your predecessor. I'd like to know what you think about all that, and what impact you think your speech had on Canada-U.S. relations.
Well, I think the first thing is that my comments in Davos laid out how we see the world, a recognition of how the world has changed. I think a point that Canadians understood months ago. In fact, I think Canada understood the scale of the change in U.S. trade policy, what it meant for our economy. We understood that well before other countries, and we started to react, controlling what we can control, building it at home, and very importantly, diversifying our trade partners abroad. That second bit is a positive thing. It's finding new partners. I mentioned in my remarks 12 new trade and security agreements in the past 6 months across 4 continents, more to come. For example, the commitment with India to work together is just one of many. And all of that builds our strength here at home, provides more opportunities, makes us less dependent on the United States. Last point. We are entering soon a negotiation or review formally of CUSMA, our agreement, as you know, with the United States and Mexico. It'll be a robust review, is the expectation. The President is a strong negotiator, and I think some of these comments and positioning should be viewed in the broader context of that.
Canada isn't pursuing a free trade agreement with China. What efforts are you or your ministers making with the Trump administration to communicate that to them so that those threats of tariffs stop?
Well, I interpreted the President's comments exactly that way, which is looking forward to were we pursuing a deeper free trade agreement. We've made it clear. My fellow members of cabinet, ministers, have made it clear to their counterparts that that's the case. We've made the public point. And it's obvious. Look, Canada, when we sign an agreement, we sign a trade agreement, in this case, USMCA, as they call it, or CUSMA, as we call it. There is a clause in that agreement, Article 32.10, I believe, which says that you will not have, you have to give notice, in effect, if you're pursuing a free trade agreement with a, quote, non-market economy. That's in the eye of the beholder who defines it, but it's a definition of any of the other parties who see somebody as a non-market economy. China is one of 15 or 17 economies that the U.S. views as non-market. I can understand why they say that. So we got an agreement. If we were even considering that, which we are not and never have, we would have given notice, and then there's a very open and transparent process.
But President Trump is unconvinced. He claims China is completely taking over Canada, and even jokes that he hopes Beijing leaves ice hockey alone. Behind the sarcasm lies a serious warning. Trade is becoming leverage, alliances are being tested, and neutrality is growing harder to maintain.